Well, hi and welcome. This is Kevin Leipsic, host of Contractor TV. Contractor TV is focused on providing content to help contractors start, grow, and manage a successful construction business. New for this year, we're starting to record some new content for homeowners that might be searching for contractors, and we want to be able to help that homeowner decide how to vet a contractor, how to find a successful contractor. And today, we're excited. We have Shawn, aka Graybeard Davis, founder of SolarWise in California, which is one of the state's largest and most successive solar brokers. Shawn, how are you? Good morning.
Hey, Kevin, I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation and thank you for the
Yeah,
opportunity to chat with your audience.
absolutely. Excited to have you here. I mean, solar is such a big and important issue, especially in California, right? So,
Oh,
um,
you better believe it. The most
right?
expensive state other than Hawaii and
Yep.
closely about to eclipse Hawaii. So,
Yep, yep. So tell us, a little bit about, how'd you get into the business? I know you have a kind of a financial services background, but why get into the solar industry?
well, yeah, great question. I've been
Yeah.
pretty much a serial entrepreneur for most of my life. I originally got started in financial services and spent 22 years as a fiduciary financial advisor. And I ended up selling that practice back in 2017. And then my wife and I thought we were going to have the great idea of becoming the California version of Chip and Joanna Gaines. After I
Mm,
sold my financial services
yep,
practice, I
yep,
thought I was going to try my hand at flipping some houses. And
yeah,
over
yeah,
the course of about 2.5 years, we ended up flipping 12 high-end homes in Sacramento. And that's where
yeah,
I kind of first got my taste of solar. California, you build a house big enough, and if you're forward thinking in terms of value, you want to create a house that produces its own power with solar. So I started to
sure.
investigate a little bit of the solar industry, and I mean, it was a wild experience. I felt like it was the old west. I had Solar Chuck in his truck show up, who was like an
Yeah.
unlicensed guy, and then I had Slick Solar Rick show up in a Mercedes and try to high pressure me into a contract at that time. And
Yeah, the Wild
I was
West,
looking,
right?
yeah, yeah. I was, so I have four boys and I'm married to my high school sweetheart, and our oldest is 28. And I was looking for the next thing that I could maybe build in collaboration with my boys. And so when
Yeah,
COVID hit, I was just starting to investigate solar, and I thought, man, I think that this is going to be a thriving market for the foreseeable future. I think it's something that I could help to, entrench my boys in, and maybe if they want to help me
yeah,
develop a business that I can then hand off to them, that would be something that we could do. And so I thought solar was a great opportunity, and it
yeah.
has been. And I used some of my background in financial services. I used to market for clients via radio back in financial services. So I thought I could use radio in solar as well. So fast forward 4.5 years later, here we are.
Yeah, yeah, and you've got your own radio show now, educating people about solar, how to buy solar, what to look for in buying solar. So congratulations. Certainly a bright industry, right? A growing industry.
Very, very bright. The future
Right.
is bright in
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. So tell us a little bit. The reason I wanted to, chat with you and help you educate our audience here, both contractors and homeowners, is you have a very unique model. So tell us a little bit about, the business model you've created as a solar broker and how that's different from other, solar retailers or solar installers.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I don't want people to get the impression that I had some sort of great grand wisdom plan design of this. But
Yeah.
when I first got into solar, I didn't realize one of the first relationships I'd affiliated with was with a very large company by the name of SunPower.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that the larger a solar company gets, the more kind of, if it doesn't fit into their box, they don't want to do it. So, for example, solar is very fractionalized. There's some companies out there that won't do ground-mounted systems for homeowners. Some companies that won't do commercial projects. They only do residential. Some companies that don't do off-grid remote cabin in a woods kind of solar. So
Right.
when you do a radio show and you broadcast your voice, to a wide audience, the circumstances and the challenges and the homeowner conditions of properties and things like that, you get a lot of very unique and very different situations. So
Mhm.
short answer is I kept having to find more companies that I could work with that would do that particular specialization. And so, as a former fiduciary and stockbroker, then became a realtor. In real estate, you got real estate brokers. In mortgage lending, you got mortgage brokers.
Right.
I
And
started to
insurance,
realize
we've got insurance
you
brokers.
got insurance brokers,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
the idea behind it is that you're dealing with one person, one point of contact that then has a lot of resources. And I think in solar, that's kind of a critical thing because solar, there's a lot of challenges in solar. Companies come and go. Some companies go out of business. Even the biggest guys out there can go out of business. And so, what we wanted to do was be a resource for homeowners that had vetted. In 4.5 years, I've gone through 30 different solar installers to find the 11 good ones that we kind of work with today.
Mhm.
So in other words, 19 other companies that we at some point wanted to engage or did work with, we no longer work with for a myriad of different reasons. But the idea behind it is that you've got one point of contact. I think when people want to explore solar, do you really want to take 5 days over 5 weeks to have five separate conversations with five different solar sales folk, or do you want to talk with one consultant, one advisor, really understand how solar works, and then have that person who's vetted up to 30 different solar installers to find 11 really good ones that you can work with, then get you some proposals or quotes on solar, and then guide you through the differences amongst these different installers. And so what I feel like we're doing is more homeowner advocacy relative to solar versus most of the solar industry is solar sales, somebody that works with a particular company. They sell for that particular company. They've got one option. And we think more options in this environment is better. And we think that we have a little bit more of a touch or a feel of the industry because of how
Mhm.
many different connections and relationships we have. It avails us to opportunities that maybe a single salesperson working for X company may not have available to their clients.
Right, right. Appreciate that background, and it's an important, right? It's a big investment, right? And I liked, I was looking at your website earlier this morning. I love on the tagline, it says something about say goodbye to sales tricks and biased opinions. There's a lot of like you said earlier, sales companies that come and go, and sales reps that come and go. Um,
Yeah,
so
and so let me expand on that just for a moment
yeah,
because
yeah.
think about this one point. If you, as a homeowner, you engage with a local company, so here's some of the things that we've learned. The smaller the company, often the more expensive the solar because those companies don't have the benefit of
The
economies
buying
of
power.
scale,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, they can't buy panels and batteries in the same bulk. We've learned that if we work with a company that does solar in conjunction with siding, windows, HVAC work, and plumbing, those companies historically, in our experience, haven't done solar as well as a company that only focuses on doing solar.
Makes
And
sense.
then on the opposite side, you got the biggest companies out there. Sometimes their model is such that they got 50 warehouses in California, 4,000 employees that work for the company. And there's a lot of waste and financial bloat with those companies. And that distills down into their proposals. So our sweet spot has kind of been these mid-level installers, companies that I think do at least 200 to maybe 500 installs a month or fewer. That's kind of
Okay.
been the best spot for us relative to our experience in terms of quickness to install, fairness of pricing, and
Right.
overall quality solar relationship.
Got it. Makes total sense. So going back to your explanation of, taking a consultative approach and having access to, vetted, qualified installers that, know and understand solar. When you're presenting a solution then to the homeowner and you're giving them, if I hear you right, you're giving them multiple options. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, our commitment to a homeowner is that let's say somebody wants to pay cash for solar. We will get them at least five different quotes from five completely different companies that we've worked with previously and
Hmm.
vetted. And the advantage to the homeowner is that we will guide them through those quotes because there isn't a common method in solar for how the information relative to the system size, performance, things like that is actually given to a homeowner. I've seen proposals written out on a yellow pad. I've seen them written out on a copied piece of paper where you kind of fill in the blank like you're back in school for a test.
Yeah.
Generally,
Yeah.
the companies that we deal with, I'll get you a 14-page summary proposal talking about how much the energy, how much the system will generate in energy, the cost, the warranties, all that kind of stuff. So it is important that I think that if you're not solar familiar, that you have an advisor or a guide in the process. And our model is such that we get a flat fee, based on the size of a system. That's how we're compensated. So it doesn't matter to us if somebody goes with company A, B, C, D, or E. Doesn't really matter, but each one of those companies is completely different businesses with a different cost of doing business, with a different warehouse location proximity to you, either an advantage or disadvantage. And so when we go through those proposals with somebody, we want to eliminate a lot of the time consumption in that, but also be an advocate for the homeowner to really truly understand the differences in what's being quoted for them and where the value might lie.
Okay, thanks for that answer. So you mentioned a fee. So is that fee paid by the homeowner, or is that fee incorporated between you and the solar installer?
It's paid for by the solar installer themselves. And let me explain why. So let's take a different model in solar. Let's take a company like Sunrun. So if you've ever walked into Costco or Home Depot and been greeted by some solar for your home, folks, solar for your home, solar, right?
Yeah.
So that's a company called Sunrun. And so if you think about their business model, it's a really super expensive business model to facilitate because they have to staff each of those stores with a dedicated employee that's solar knowledgeable and licensed. They got to pay for their medical and insurances and FICA, workers' comp, and all the things, because obviously employees in California are expensive. And then for the honor and privilege of being in that store, Costco and Home Depot want a piece of that business. They 25, 30% of the solar transaction or the gross profit for marketing to their customers. So that's a really expensive business model for them to acquire a client. Conversely, think about my model. I'm nobody's employee. I do my own marketing through my radio show. I find a homeowner. I educate that homeowner on how solar works, what their usage is, any property level concerns that might be present. Kind of like an attorney building a case. I kind of build this case of the situation of the homeowner, package it up in one nice bow, and then send it off to one of our installers to bid the job. And at that point, they've got no marketing dollars. They've got no employee dollars in the deal. We've eliminated all of the variables of concern for them so they can just bid the job. And then based on volume, many of these companies we've brought 50, 60, 80 deals to in the last year. And so we qualify the homeowner for their best tier pricing, because if they're going up against 4 other solar installers, every time we request a bid, they know they're going to get lumped in with at least 4 other installers. They better put their best foot forward pricing wise if they're going to win business. Right.
That's
so all
a
of that's
great
to the
model.
advantage of the homeowner.
Yeah, great model. It's probably in most cases, if we're not, every case, it's a less expensive client acquisition or lead generation cost for that solar contractor than the alternative model.
Yeah, zero.
Right.
So they've got $0 in it. By the time we send the proposal over, they've got no dollars in it themselves. And then one other point I was going to make is solar is not for the faint of heart. Let's say you engage with a company that's local to you, and nothing wrong with that. But let's say that there's some sort of challenge that you encounter and you're at opposite ends with this company in terms of how to solve the problem. And the solar salesperson that sold you the system, they're employed by the company that you're now kind of challenging to posture against or get something fixed. Like on my side as a broker, if you're having a problem, you're my client. If I call up a company that I just sent 50 deals to in the last year because of our radio show volume, do you think they're going to receive my call? Do you think they're going to want 50 more deals coming in the next year? And do you think that they're going to, hey, you need to get out to Jim and Mary's house and take care of X, Y, or Z? I've had to use that,
leverage.
Yeah, leverage effectively. I think that if you're dealing with somebody local to you, as one homeowner, the most leverage you got is either a bad Google review or Yelp review.
Right. And it's not only, that virtually net zero cost to the contractor, to the solar contractor, right? Because you're bringing in the opportunity, but also sounds like it's much more beneficial to the homeowner, because the homeowner's getting the advantage of having a full consultation and multiple choices to choose from, right? So
100%.
So walk me through a little bit on, human nature, right? The cheapest, people going, well, I'm just going to take the lowest bid, right? You chuckle. So walk us through a little bit about that. And if I'm hearing you correctly, I think I'm jumping ahead here, but I think the answer is, you're providing, maybe a finance option, maybe a cash option. You're providing multiple solutions, right? It's
Yes.
not just based on
Yeah,
cost.
there's that old adage that cheaper isn't always better and better isn't always cheaper, right?
Right,
So I
right,
think part of the goal of having somebody like myself and our team involved in the solar transaction is, does an average homeowner know a difference in panel quality from one installer to another?
right,
Does an
right,
average homeowner know the differences in batteries from one installer to another? Does the average homeowner know the differences in inverters from one installer to another? And
yep,
so I would say that price is an important consideration. It's an important equation in solar for sure. But when we're speaking with a homeowner, we're not going to be shy about sharing if there's a better equipment, better panels, better inverters, something along those lines that might justify why one proposal that we're getting from one installer is better than another. And
right,
I think that guided tutorial or guided overview of them is one of the most valuable things that we bring to the table, because it is important to me to educate homeowners. That's part of the reason I do a radio show. If somebody listens to my radio show, we've got an hour-long show that airs on 8 different stations throughout California. Okay, it's called the
hmm,
SolarWise. You can go to our website, solarwiseco.com, to see our station list. But we do this show, and part of the reason I do it is that most of the solar industry is door knockers, or these online ads that people submit to, and the next thing you know, they're getting 25 reach outs from people that want to sell them
right,
solar.
right,
But that's most of the industry. What I wanted to do was lead with education, lead with resources, lead with a weekly radio show where people could tune in to hear what's going on in the
right,
marketplace right
right,
now,
right.
and be educated on solar without the threat of somebody standing at your door. Hey, can we talk to you? Hey, did you notice the utility down the street? We're the utility. I mean, so much of solar is trying to disguise people or misinform people or hide behind something that they're not.
Yeah,
And I lead with it. Here's the show. Here's some resources that I've
yeah,
researched.
yeah.
Get this information. If you don't like me or don't like what we're talking about, you can
Got
change
it,
station, right?
got it. Makes
Yeah.
sense. So kind of in our time remaining here, we've got a little about 5 to 7 minutes or so. Tell us a little bit about, what are the most important things a homeowner should be asking? And also if you could touch a little bit about, what's happening in California with, PG&E, obviously consistently raising rates. So talk to us a little bit about, what is, if you were to nail it down, the 2 to 3 most important things that homeowners should do when shopping for solar, what would that be?
Well, I think one of the biggest advantages and one of the biggest suggestions is get educated, right? Which is, again, one of the reasons why we provide resources, and we've pledged to provide some resources to you. So if anybody's watching, I've got some resources that I've recently written. For example, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, where I talk about the differences between cash transactions versus finance transactions in solar versus leases versus power purchase programs, which
Mhm.
are very different than any of those other three. So I talk about those. I've also written a summary, California's energy future. So just for some context, in PG&E territory in California, the last 10 years, they've had a 12.5% growth rate per year, every year, outpacing most people's ability to be compensated with retirement income in the same fashion. Stated differently, most people don't see their income go up 12, 13, 14% a year. So
Yeah.
PG&E's been at this 10-year, 12.5% growth. Last 4 years, it's been 18%. This year alone, it went up 21% in the first 3 months of this year. But here's my concern, Kevin. I think that this is only just the beginning of what is worse to come, because California's got this very aggressive green energy goal of being carbon neutral by 2040. Newsom wants everyone driving an electric vehicle by 2035. The California Air Resources Board is getting rid of natural gas hot water heaters and furnaces by 2030. So when I look out in the future, California is going to force us all to use more energy. Then PG&E, because their archaic and older aged grid, is going to force all of us to pay more for that energy. And here's the big surprise. Once California starts mandating that there's no more natural gas hot water heaters and furnaces, most people don't realize that heating air or water takes 3 to 5 times more energy than cooling air, or water. So effectively, most of you out there, if you're thinking about this, your worst bills are during the summer because of AC. I
Mhm.
foresee a future in California where some of you out there, the worst bills that you'll ever see are going to be your winter bills because everyone's going to be forcing you to have an electric, heater or electric furnace or heat pump or something along those lines. And so I think the challenges are numerous. And here's the thing, solar is always going to be less expensive. Solar is always going to be cheaper than Edison, PG&E, or San Diego Gas and Electric. We can show you that information. I promise you it's going to be cheaper. And we've got lots of different options as a broker. If you haven't looked at solar in the last 6 to 12 months, I would say definitely do so now because the whole world has changed around solar.
Yeah, great. I appreciate that. And, are you looking for any new contractors at all? Any new solar installers or contractors, or are you pretty much set with, I think you said you've got 10 or 11 that you've vetted already? Because I know our channel attracts a lot of contractors in California as well. If you are looking for contractors, what are those 2 to 3 most important things, to be able to work with you? What would that be?
Yeah, so the solar, there was a big change in solar last year, right? So that was the NEM 2 versus the NEM 3 compensation schedule for how solar works in California. So basically, understand it this way. On any bright, sunshiny day, solar is very regimented. It's fixed. I don't have a turbo button to allow solar to make more energy than it normally makes, nor do we have a brake button to allow it to make less energy than it
Okay,
makes.
and excuse me for just a second, Shawn. I want to
Yeah.
make sure we let people know what that NEM is, right? That I think that's a net energy monitoring, or we want
Net
to
energy metering. And
metering.
so
Okay, see, so I want to make sure we explain what that is
yeah,
and
and
why it's
and, and
important.
here's the explanation. So when that solar system creates more energy than is being used in the home, it has to go somewhere. That energy, NEM 2, that energy used to go to PG&E, for example, and PG&E gave you a one-to-one credit. So PG&E effectively looked and acted like a battery for most homeowners. That's why they had a true-up year. That every watt that they sent to PG&E, they got to pull it back later that evening or later in the year even to then not have to pay PG&E. NEM 3 changed all that. So it still works the same. Bright, sunshiny day, solar system produces more energy than you're using. But now if that energy goes to PG&E, they keep 75% of it. They're effectively thieves of that energy. They didn't
Yeah,
produce it, you did, but yet they keep it. So that's why battery storage is such an important thing now, not for older customers with true ups, but now under the NEM 3 guideline, you definitely would want to store that excess energy in your own battery so you don't forfeit any of it.
so in
So
other
back
words, I as a homeowner want to keep what I've created and what I've invested in
correct.
versus giving it to someone, giving it to PG&E,
Yes. So the
right?
batteries become what we call a darkness bridge. Solar stops working when the sun goes down. They haven't figured out how to generate energy from moonlight yet. So effectively, the batteries bridge sundown with sun up, pushing energy into the home so the homeowner doesn't have to pull from PG&E. So this big change last year, though, created ripples and sometimes waves. It's caused some of the biggest companies out there to go under. SunPower recently went bankrupt. Triton went bankrupt. Multi-state, 16 states. Another company called Infinity in Northern California, 6,000 projects. They went bankrupt. So back to your original question, I'm definitely looking always for quality installers, but I like the mid-level guys, 200 to 500 deals a month. And I don't like any companies that take what they call M1 milestone payments. The big three companies that went under, they went under because as soon as they contracted with a homeowner, financing, lease, or whatever, they could submit for reimbursement from a finance company, but they were limited on how much time they could get that solar job installed in. So in essence, it
Mm,
was robbing from Peter to pay Paul. They would
got
borrow
it.
future contract money, but if they couldn't get that deal done, then the finance company would call that money back. That's what took many of these companies over or took them
Yep.
under. So I don't want to work with any contractors that take those M1 milestone payments because to me, that's a warning flag. And that's not
Great.
something the average homeowner is
Makes
going to
sense.
know. But that's
Yeah.
the value that we bring because we look for that because we know the industry and what's going on right now.
I've heard a little bit about a company based out of Florida. I think they own Florida Power. You're chuckling. Um, yeah, they've moved into California recently. They're doing something. Can you help kind of explain
Yeah,
that for us?
that's a great question. They're
Yeah,
being disruptors, right? So you
yeah,
remember last year when Newsom and Ron DeSantis were kind of going at each other. One was coming to California, the other one was going to
right.
Florida. They had each other's name in their mouth. Well,
Yeah.
I feel like this is that equivalent. So
Oh,
Florida Power and
interesting.
Light is the third largest utility in the nation today. Or excuse me, they're owned by the third largest energy company, a company called Next Era Energy, owns Florida Power and Light. But what I was going to say is that the prices that Californians are paying for electricity has gotten nationwide attention. There are people in Illinois and Nebraska that know how expensive PG&E is here
PG&E.
in
Yeah.
California. So it caught the attention of Next Era, and they decided that they were going to sharpen their pencils, and they wanted to figure out if they could actually find a way to develop a market share here in California, given that they're a Florida company.
Yeah.
And they realized that they could never compete with PG&E directly. So when you think about PG&E's infrastructure, it goes back to 1905, and PG&E generates a lot of energy from watershed off of the Sierra Nevada mountains, a lot of hydroelectric power. So very difficult for another company to come in here and replicate that
Sure.
type of energy generation.
Yeah.
But the good news is PG&E doesn't own the sun, although I think they'd like to, and they don't own sunlight. And so Next Era figured out that they could actually compete with PG&E, Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric by providing people with a solar system, a solar generated energy power plant for their home at zero out-of-pocket cost to the homeowner. So the homeowner is not responsible for a loan or a lump sum cash payment. There's nothing on their credit balance. Unlike a lease, there's nothing that shows up in terms of indebtedness or an obligation on their credit report. But the idea is that Next Era will install a photovoltaic system, a solar panel system with up to 6 batteries. Backup version or cost savings batteries are eligible. There's 2 different types of batteries in solar now. But they'll give you the batteries, they'll give you the solar system, they'll make a power plant for the home at zero out-of-pocket cost to the homeowner, as long as the homeowner agrees to purchase the energy once that power plant goes live. So effectively, for context, in PG&E territory right now, Tier 1 daytime rates in summer are 43 cents a kilowatt hour. Tier 2, which is afternoon rates in the summer, are 63 cents. I think 42 to 63 cents a kilowatt hour
Yeah.
for the energy that you would buy from PG&E. This program from Next Era, most of our clients are falling somewhere in between 20 to 27 cents for something that PG&E is charging 43 to 62 cents for.
Wow.
So I think that's a huge advantage. And then one other point I'd like to make, this program does have cost increases yearly. So for context, PG&E in the last 10 years has had a 12.5% rate of growth in their utility costs yearly. 12.5 every year. Last 4 years, it's been 18. And then this year alone, in the first 3 months, it was 21%. Okay.
This is PG&E?
So, yeah, this is PG&E.
Yeah. Wow.
Massive. And I think that this is just the beginning. I think it's going to get worse in the future.
Yeah.
But this program from Next Era is capped contractually. I think this is the biggest advantage. Not only can I help people save money today, but I can cap their future growth. It's capped at 3.5% a year. For context, Kevin, think of it this way. A lot of our homeowners are saving more than 50% against PG&E with this program. So cutting their bills in half for a system that they don't have to get a loan for or pay cash for. Now, this program at 3.5% growth rate, it's going to take 21 years before the cost of it has doubled. Let me state that a little differently. If it's half the cost of PG&E today for most of our homeowners, it's going to take 21 years before it equals what most people are paying for PG&E today.
Yeah.
That's when it would double in the future. So great program, and I'm glad you mentioned it. And if anybody's listening, if they'd like more information, reach out to Kevin. We'd be happy to share that with you.
Perfect. And we've got our information right up top. Get a hold of me. Happy to put you in touch with Shawn. Shawn's been, a great resource. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So this program, essentially half the cost of PG&E for cost per kilowatt.
Yeah, so most of our clients, it is a custom quote for each home, ground mount versus roof mount,
Sure.
The orientation of your roof, et cetera. But generally speaking, most of our clients have been able to see a halving of their utility bill. I'll qualify that by saying that if their normal electricity bill is $200 to $300 or more, that's the beginning of that savings. So the less energy somebody uses, the less this program will save them. The more energy somebody uses. So out there if you're watching this, if you've got a monthly electricity bill of 400, 500, 600 or more, this program will, in my opinion, save you more than half against somebody like PG&E, unless you're on some sort of a discounted rate program,
Right.
care, baseline, or something along those lines.
Right. And there are caps. And again, I want to make sure I understood this correctly, that the caps are 3%, 3.5% per year versus what
Yeah.
we're
So
doing with
the
PG&E doing
program,
double digits.
yeah. So if I'm right about what's coming in PG&E territory in the future, so there's back in the old financial advisory days, there's a rule in finance called the rule of 72. If you take the rate of return that you're getting on your investment and divide that into the number 72, it'll tell you how long it takes you at that rate of
Right.
return for your money to double.
Right.
I use it relative to helping people understand how long it might be before their PG&E bill, Edison bill, or San Diego Gas and Electric bill doubles. So
Yeah.
at 10% rate of growth per year utility, keep in mind PG&E's been at 12.5% the last 10 years, 18% the last 4 years, and then 21% this year. But at 10%,
Hmm.
anybody that's watching right now, your utility bill with PG&E will double in 7 years. So take whatever it is now, double it 7 years into the future, 7.2.
Yeah.
7.2 years into the future after that, that cost is now doubled again. Then another 7.2 years after that, at that same 10% rate, it's doubled now. It's doubled again. So
Right.
if 600 went to 600, 600 went to 1200, 1200 went to 2400. I see that in the future, right? This program, because of the very slow rate of growth, it's going to take it 21 years before it doubles. And if it's half the cost of PG&E today, just think about that. Two
Yeah.
more points, okay? Second point that I wanted to make relative to that is if I can have somebody's bill today, and we both agree that PG&E is likely to grow faster than 3.5%, as time goes on, what this saves a homeowner should increase yearly
Go. Yeah.
because what it was mitigating would have gotten that much more expensive. So think of it this way: 5 years into the future, it could be 1/3 of PG&E. 10 years into the future, it could be 1/4 of PG&E, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Which brings me to the last point. This is the only program that I've ever seen in California that is guaranteed transferable. This is where it's better than financing and better than leasing. It's guaranteed transferable to a new homeowner without credit qualification. So if you're somebody out there listening right now that thinks, I want to get out the heck out of California in 5 years or 7 years, paying cash for solar doesn't make sense because you're not going to have enough time to recoup your investment. Financing solar at these high interest rates doesn't make sense. But this program is the cheapest payment I can get somebody, and it's going to be the most flexible for them to transfer if they ever go to sell. And I want to make this last point. I think if
Yeah.
I'm right about what's coming, houses in PG&E territory in the future that don't have solar are going to sell at a disadvantage compared to houses that do, because affordability is such a concern right now.
Yeah.
Houses that produce their own power will be more desirable to people in the future, especially if these rates continue to be as caustic as they've been.
Yeah. Wow. Again, seems like a no-brainer. Are they able to keep up with the demand with such a great value proposition? Are they doing their own installing? Are they outsourcing it? Tell us a little bit about that. I know we were kind of wrapping up here, but I think this is very
Yeah, that's
interesting.
it. That's a great question. Thus far, they are, but so this is a very limited program. It's my understanding there's only about 15 companies in the whole state of California right now that can represent it. And NextEra, through their subsidiary Everbright, has closed down their ability for new installers and other companies to be
To
part of
keep
it.
up with the capacity, right?
Correct. Yeah, and I think they're testing the market, and I think the rates are really low. My expectation is 3 months or 6 months from now, I won't be able to quote somebody 20 cents a kilowatt hour like we're doing right now, 20 to 22 to 23. I think they'll go up. Because think about it this way, Kevin, if you and I were in business together and our competitors and PG&E just raised their rates 21% in the first 3 months of this year,
Right. Gives us
does that
permission to go
not,
up a little bit, right? And still
yeah, does
save.
that not allow us a little more
Little
flexibility?
room.
Maybe
Right.
have a little
Right.
better pricing. So I think the thing that I would like to say is, and this is not sales speak, this is not some artificial veined, solicitation, but I just want to be candid that if you're interested in saving money on utility, you don't want to buy a system, you don't want to get a loan, this is one of the best programs that I've seen. And just act fast. Reach out to Kevin. He's got the contact information for getting in touch with
Yeah.
us. But reach out fast because I do expect it will change and become more costly. I think it'll always be cheaper than PG&E. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
But I think the savings that we could get for somebody right now is the best that we'll see moving forward.
Great, great. Well, Shawn, appreciate all the time. You're just a wealth of knowledge, AKA Graybeard. I love it. Thanks again for all the time. For those that are interested in learning more, getting in touch with Shawn and his team, all the contact information is up above. And again, Shawn, really appreciate you carving out time to talk with us today.
Hey, Kevin, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. I
You
had a lot
bet.
of fun, and would love to do it again if your audience feels like that would be something that would be beneficial.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll do a series here as things change, keep everybody posted on what's going on. But enjoy the rest of the day. And again, Shawn, thanks again for sharing all the wealth of knowledge. We appreciate
Hey,
it.
you're welcome. Have a
All
great day.
right. Bye-bye.